Thanks for clarifying that. Actually, I read the book as well in preparation for this interview, and it's really relevant for all different types of people. The way I see it is like the green book last time. So when you want to learn about domain-driven design, that's the domain-driven design distilled book, where you can see it from the beginning why you should choose domain-driven design and how to implement it. The same way here, like you have the monolith and microservices, but you actually started not from a technical related discussion. You actually started from the business perspective. So part one is about strategic learning and experimentation. I saw this one particular quote, which I think is very interesting for us to talk about. So you said in the book that the ultimate goal is to develop strategically significant software that produces breakthrough innovations, rather than what you have touched on, a steady stream of cool technologies or whatever that is. So tell us more about why you started the book in this way.
I do want to say, Henry, that you're correct in that the book is very unique in kind of addressing C-level executives and other executives head on, where we're saying, okay, this book is for you. It is a technology book, but it is for you. And that is different from most technology books. So yes, you are absolutely correct. And then from the standpoint of why did we take this strategic approach is, well, strategy is what earns. Strategy is what has set companies, organizations apart from others for as long as we have history about that. Inventors have done magnificent things, and even inventors who couldn't realize the concepts of their inventions, like Leonardo da Vinci. I mean, he had just some amazing ideas back in his day, but he couldn't realize those because the technologies at the time didn't support his hundreds of years forward thinking. But still, even if you take Thomas Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, and not to show any disrespect to any others around the world who had these sort of groundbreaking inventions, it's simply the ones that I'm more aware of because of my background in the United States. But these people really did some remarkable things. And Thomas Edison was a great salesman too, and even Alexander Graham Bell, because if you listen to them, they would tell you that you would be convinced that Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. And that's generally what he's known for. But he didn't invent the light bulb. He invented a filament. It had a much longer lifetime than other previous light bulbs. And so from that standpoint, he was quite innovative and an inventor, but he didn't invent the light bulb. He improved on the light bulb. There is a story involved, but the thrust of the book is to say, look, if you think that you're going to really invent something entirely new, that's going to be really hard. It's not that you won't. It's just that everything, it seems, has been done before. Of course, there are some things that haven't. But the point is, we can often make groundbreaking improvements on technologies that already exist to change the way people use certain things to make it better, a better user experience, to make their outcomes better, to make them more productive. This is where I think the energy should be, instead of just a developer jumping from one company to the next, sort of re-implementing the same architectures and so forth, and then just settling for the ordinary use cases. Isn't that amazing? Like, you've created one of these event-driven architectures or something before. Now, your experience should be telling you, that's actually sort of the easy part. I already know how to do that. The really hard thing is to make software that solves a different set of problems than previous software. You know what I'm saying? And I have to just say one more thing. It's funny to me that when you look at want ads for programmers, right, or software developers, architects, whatever, and it says 5+ years previous experience in banking, or in stock trades, in insurance, in medical or healthcare. Okay, why? Seriously, why? Do they want me or you to be the domain expert? Are they actually saying, just bring the knowledge that you had from the other company and come over here and give us the same thing? Well, that's not innovation at all. That's copycat. If we keep that copycat or cookie cutter thing going around, nobody is really benefiting more from software than they did those 5 prior years of that experience. And now we're just carrying that forward and forward. I think that each of us should really be much more focused on the innovation, the innovative aspects of software development.
Yeah, I tend to agree that these days people jump into technologies. What are the new things, recent things, new inventions, new frameworks, new platforms, whatever that is. But yeah, the essence of any companies or any kind of product-oriented teams is actually to build breakthrough innovations or doing more in experimentation in order to find the real values for the users that they are building the product for. So be it like helping their productivity, cost efficiency, whatever that is, rather than the angle of the next best architecture or the next best technology. You also mentioned that you have to start something with a purpose. I think you also touched on at the beginning, whether you choose microservice or monolith, but it has to have a purpose. So tell us more about this angle. What do you mean by having a purpose and choosing the best architecture and technology based on that?
Sure. So let me start from this angle. What we actually try to emphasize early in the book is to take a monolithic approach to the software development from the standpoint of keep your code together instead of distributing it on the network, because the network will introduce all kinds of problems that will interrupt and disrupt your progress, because you're going to start solving problems that are not business problems. So again, we'll get into this. Well, let's deploy these 5 brand new microservices. And all of a sudden, we're no longer solving business problems anymore because we're going to have problems. So now we have to go find these new technology mechanisms that will make this easier, will make us more successful, faster, and so forth. And look, you haven't even solved a business problem yet because you just got interrupted by the technology problems you were facing. So instead, change that angle. Focus first on just delivering software that works. When you get a sort of cadence, maybe a term that I should or shouldn't use, but the point is where you develop as a team a rhythm for delivering software on a steady basis with increasing value, that will start to define your success and it will give you a lot of confidence. So we're really saying develop the software in modules first. Use modularity. Then you can deploy early in a monolithic way, and it keeps the network largely out of the equation. And once you get that kind of rhythm established and you're regularly delivering value and you're seeing pleasure from your early users and they're like, wow, this is good. And then you just keep delivering on that. Hey, that's going to be very good for a lot of people. And I'll give you an example of that right now. So my team, the Lingo startup, that we have a reactive platform, Zoom, and we're also creating this new product called Domo Roboto, which is based on, at least initially, event storming. So we have an event storming tool that also, once you've done your event storming, can transition automatically into a context map. So you get the sense of the bounded context through some early ideas in the event storming, and then that will display as bounded context. And now you can set up the integration relationships between them. And then you can even look at what we call the Topo Architecture, which is not topology, but topography, as in elevations and text contours and textures, like you would see in topography map kind of presentation. So you can visualize the interactions between multiple bounded contexts with incoming events or incoming commands and outgoing events. And internally, what are the entities that handle these incoming requests or the translations from events? So now each of those areas will eventually be the ones that I described, and the other tools that are on the way will eventually be separated from one another. But right now, they're being modularized. Another important point is a really hard problem to solve is the remote collaboration of multiple modelers who are now working in event storming. We are not trying to solve that problem right now. Actually, we have it working, but we're not trying to deliver that out to teams right now because we know that that will interrupt our progress on the actual value that we want to add through the primary tooling. And then once we have a well-established set of tools, we will introduce the remote collaboration. You can go there now and check it out. It's Domo Roboto, but it's domorobo.to. Okay, and we'll give you a link to that, but you can actually register for free and see how that works. But the point is, we are focusing on the business value, the innovation around the tooling, And then we will introduce the network later. So we're kind of like eating our own dog food from the standpoint of we're following what we advise other teams to do.
I'll make sure to put that in the show notes. So I like the way that you explain. You start with the innovations, the value that you want to do. You have that rhythm of cadence, the experimentation, feedback loops, that kind of thing. And then you start with the modules. So once you have this concept of innovations, you want to start with modules, maybe start with the monolith per se, right? So remove the equation of the distributed network and all these complexities, communication between services. And you choose the deployment techniques that are more complicated later on. Once you have seen some kind of values or maybe some kind of patterns